This is an informational video that is not like something that you've probably seen before. At least I haven't seen it presented in this way. Today, we're gonna talk about tractor, load on the front loader, ballast on the rear of the tractor or load on the rear of the tractor, and kind of the relationship they have with each other and how it affects the distribution of weight of this tractor. So we have a Kubota 2502, and then behind me, or behind the tractor, we've got a carryall. That carryall has a pallet with roughly 650 pounds of concrete bags. On the front of the tractor, we have a set of forks. We have another pallet that also has around 600 to 650 pounds. We weighed those, they're 60-pound bags. We weighed those individually of each other, and we were getting fluctuated numbers. So I can't accurately just call it 600 pounds. We're gonna be using a set of truck scales, and we are going to measure each independent wheel. We can then calculate the load on the front axle, the load on the rear axle, and obviously the combined total weight. When we go through these tests, we're gonna keep score right here. So we're gonna keep all of these numbers, and then I'm gonna walk you through what they really mean, right? Because numbers on this little scoreboard up here are great, but I think that I can point out some things in those numbers that'll help you have a better understanding of this entire kind of situation we have going on right here with the distribution of load on the tractor and how each of those is affecting it. With the current setup we have, I can't demonstrate with and without loaded tires, but we can talk about that and touch on that and how it affects what we're doing and how it would affect what we're doing. We're gonna put the tractor on the scales and get a baseline, and we're gonna see what those numbers are with nothing other than the forks in the front and nothing other than the carryall on the back. At that point, we're gonna take it off of the scales, we're gonna pick up the rear weight, and then we're gonna put it back on the scales, and we'll recheck all of those numbers, check our individual axle weights, and see what the balance of the machine is. After that, we'll set the rear weight back down. We'll come up here and we'll get the front weight. We'll go back into the scales and we'll show all of those same numbers with just the front weight. At that point, we'll pick up the rear weight and bring the tractor back on the scales with weight on both sides of the tractor, and we can show kind of how those relationships changed and how those numbers changed, and we can talk about the ratios of the axles. During the test, I'm gonna take the camera, and we're gonna have Andrew, who's currently holding the camera, he's gonna jump up here on the tractor and just stay on the tractor the entire time. So this test is going to be done with an average size person in the operator seat. As we back the tractor on, this is gonna show us the total combined weight. So with the operator, the forks, and the carryall, we are sitting at 4,490 pounds. From here, we can cycle through each individual pad and we'll get recordings for those. So the left front's 1520, the right front's 1560, the left rear is 710, the right rear is 690. We combine those numbers to get a front axle load, a rear axle load, and then we have our combined load. As it sits, without anything on the front or the back of this tractor, it's sitting about 70% on the front axle and 30% on the rear axle. So adding liquid to your rear tires is a great way to affect the center of gravity and lower the center of gravity of the tractor. We'll make another video about that later. But the main thing I want to touch on with tire ballast is it only makes the tractor heavier. It does not remove any load from the front axle. And, well, you're about to see that this weight on the back will in fact remove weight from the front axle, which is what rear ballast behind the tractor does. So our total is now up to 5,150. So we've added 660 pounds. The left front, 1270, right front, 1270, left rear, 1340, right rear, 1270. So while we added 660 pounds to the tractor, we also removed 550 pounds from the front axle. So we'll get this load off the back of the tractor. We'll go forward and pick up the load on the front of the tractor and put it back in the scales. But adding that 660 pounds in the rear brought this tractor from a 70% front distribution to almost an equal 50-50 distribution between the front axle and the rear axle. If we added weight to the rear axle, by loading tires or by wheel weights, we would have made the overall tractor heavier. We would have helped the distribution. It would have helped with the stability, but it would not take weight off the front axle. I would like to demonstrate this in a later video, probably when it's not 20 degrees outside. We'll look at filling the rear tires of a tractor while it's on scales so we can watch kind of how that all unfolds and show you how that affects the balance of the tractor. So now we've got the front load, we've got nothing on the back, and we're going to back this tractor back up onto the scales. There's roughly the same amount of weight on the front of this pallet as there is on the pallet on the back of the tractor. So now we have a combined weight of 5160, front left 2290, front right 2300, left rear 270, and right rear 310. Although we only added 680 pounds to the overall weight of this tractor, it was majorly on the front axle. We removed 820 pounds that was on the rear axle from our baseline and put it on the front axle. And we added a total of 1,500 pounds to the front of this machine. All by just adding 680 pounds to the actual loader. An additional 1,500 pounds of force was put on the front axle. We started with a roughly 70-30 ratio. With just the front loaded, we went to 89% front axle, 11% rear axle. So let's show what happens when you put ballast back on the rear. So our total is 5840, front left 2060, front right 2060, rear left 850, rear right 870. By adding 660 pounds to the rear of this machine, we removed 470 pounds from the front axle, and we added 1,140 pounds to the rear axle, bringing this back to a 70% front and a 30% rear. So when we're looking at these numbers, we can really see how important weight is off the back of the tractor. And this is just a fundamental ballast test. This is not a every scenario, all of the time, every tractor, every amount of weight. There's a lot more that goes into this, but as a core, when you put weight behind the rear axle on a tractor, you're going to take some weight off of the front axle, and when you put weight on the front axle or above the front axle of the tractor up on the loader, you're going to be pulling weight off the rear axle, and it's just showing how fast you can add an insane amount of weight to the front axle of these tractors. So I hope that you were able to learn something from this, and if you want to see any kind of different scenarios tested, or just you have some ideas that you want to see, put it in the comments. Like I said, we're going to take this tractor and these scales and we're going to do a little bit more testing. So if you want to see that, make sure to hit the subscribe button, bell notification, and we'll see you in a future video.